very-hearted little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
It's almost Memorial Day, so let's not forget to remember on Memorial Day those that we lost, including right there, that bawdy redhead, the unbelievable woman who broke into the all-boys club comedy, tour. Rusty Warren, she just passed away. I found out through a mutual friend. She passed away at 91 years old. Oh! 91. A lot of you only know that song. You don't know that song is Rusty Warren. Some of you do know that song is Rusty Warren. Most of you did not know who Rusty Warren was until that song, and it's kind of sad and insane because that woman right there in the 50s and in the 60s had 15 albums. 15 albums, yes, and it was during that era of party albums. That's what they had to be called. This was before Tipper Gore and the parental advisory, era, right? Which was totally directed at hip hop. Just say that, but before everything parental and advisory was pointed at hip hop, you had people pointing at sexual content, and that's considered sexual that was considered sexual content. And so of the 15 albums that Rusty Warren actually put out, she sold millions of albums. She was on the Billboard 200 for over 3 years with that album, called Knockers Up. You know why? Because she was trying to tell women to be proud, to throw their shoulders back, knockers up, right? To stand proud. That's what this message was about. Anyway, she had 15 albums. They were all labeled party albums. Like Red Fox was labeled a party album. Chris Rush was labeled a party album. Anything that dealt with anything that was mature or something that we all did had to be labeled as bad. And so that's why she never became a household name, But this album that song comes off of is from 1960, believe it or not. And it was called Knockers Up, and it stayed on the Billboard 200 for over 3 years. 3 years. And she was considered too risque for TV. Hello, everybody. I'm on the TV. Can you believe that crap? But yeah, she was considered too risque. She really did. She never cursed. I've heard almost all her albums. I've never heard her use a swear word ever. And she was sort of kind of banned from television. But she led an amazing life. She was a hero of mine. She's been an inspiration for me as soon as I discovered her work. I think I discovered her work or found out about, the stuff that she was making back in the 50s. I think I realized this around, the late 90s, somewhere around there. I'm going to say I found her around 98 or 99. And, by playing her song, she was literally able to go out and do some more shows. And I'm really proud that we had any tiny little smidgen of anything to do with helping her reach even more audience. So she was doing, like college things and like dinner theaters and things like that. And she was very surprised, after she was 60, let's just say, she was very surprised that young people were showing up to see her, and she couldn't figure out why for a really long time. And then she did, and she just realized that the younger generation, my generation, which is considered by her to be the younger generation, and the younger generation that's considered by me to be the younger generation, we all have the same exact stress and anxiety and fear of failure in that arena. So she's universal, and I just wanted to memorialize her today because God knows we have bounced our boobies with her for, I was trying to figure it out. I'm guessing more than 15 years. More than 15 years. So Thank you. Knockers up, everybody. Rusty, rest in peace. Go with the angels. Every burlesque queen in America salutes you. Every body broad salutes you. Every bad girl trying to be good. We all salute you. So thank you so much for indulging me. Anyway, it was sad news. It was really sad. I got the news last night, and I got it through a mutual friend, which is a good way to get it. I didn't have to read it on the internets. There was very little about her on the internets, I must say. But I will say, props to Elaine Boozler, who tweeted it and put it on her Facebook page, and other female comedians who did the same. I really feel like I had a special bond with her, and I'm very lucky to be able to say that. Anyway, 9 dead in San Jose. Welcome, everybody, to the Death Hour. Yeah. Well, at least Rusty passed peacefully. Natural causes and all, 91 years old. Or as Lisa, a mutual friend, said, she was effing old. Yeah, so, but nine people from 29 to 63. Mass murder, shot.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Mass shootings are increasing at an incredibly disturbing rate, nearly doubling if you compare 2020 to 2018. We had 611 such incidents last year where 4 or more victims were killed or wounded. And as of this morning, there have been 232 mass shootings so far this year. 258 people killed and nearly 1,000 wounded in less than 6 months.
1,000 wounded in mass shootings, 232 mass shootings in just 2021, 600 plus the year before. What is wrong with us? Can I just say, why are we such a hateful, violent, effed up, mentally deranged people? Why? Why do we always turn to the gun? The semi-automatic, I mean, this is so bizarre. And when you put this story about what happened in San Jose, and whenever there's a breaking news story like this with a lot of death in it, I don't report it as it's breaking, because there's always information that's wrong, and you could wait a day. Unless you're a victim, a family member of the victim, you need to know right. And so that's part of the reason why they don't report out everything at the beginning. They need to notify the family, and I think the family comes first. And I don't need to report in real time that there's, you know what I mean? And yesterday it was very, they were withholding a lot of information, and it was obvious that the police, that gave the press conference yesterday, were withholding a lot of information for some reason. And it turns out that it is the reason that you would think, and that is because they wanted to notify family members, and people were, panicked because they had people that worked at this rail yard. This is a rail yard in San Jose, California, and they weren't able to get a hold of all the family members who had anyway. Now we have the actual story, and the actual story is the same story. It's the same old story. It's the story of a man who had a problem with alcohol, according to his ex-girlfriend and his ex-wife. Okay, he had a very bad temper. He had mood swings that were elevated when he drank. He had restraining orders out on him. He was accused of rape and abuse by previous partners. He literally set his house on fire before he went to the rail yard where he did work, and burned his house down, which tells you he was ready to go. But for some strange reason in this country, when you're ready to go and you have access to semi-automatic weapons, you want to take people with you. And that is kind of what happened. He was a 57-year-old man. His name is Sam. I'm not going to say his full name. Why would we do that? Why do we care? We're never going to remember it anyway. And who the hell cares, right? But the backstory on him is the typical backstory. Troubled, mentally unstable, unfit to own a weapon, had many weapons. Dogs, bomb-sniffing dogs were deployed. They found his locker, and in his locker he had precursors to, bomb-making material. I don't know. And so, of course, Texas decides this would be a great time a great time to take away the least tiny little requirement that's left to own a gun in Texas, and that is to pass an insane law to allow people to carry guns without background checks, without training, and without a license. Because, hey, everybody, this is America. Law enforcement, which the right wing seems to really love. They love two things. They love a fetus, and they think they love law enforcement. But, of course, they don't want to feed the baby. They're only in love with a fetus in a womb. And they talk a lot about how they love constitutional rights, but they don't want us to vote. And they love a gun. And they love law enforcement. Well, you can't hold all those thoughts and be pro-death penalty and be going against what law enforcement wants, which is to not have guns awash in the society without any background checks, because now they don't know who they're stopping. Now they don't know. So they said in Texas, they said, well, we want everybody to have a gun. We just want everybody to be able to willy-nilly just carry a gun and whatever, And the law enforcement and the majority of people in Texas, I just will say, the citizenry who, 60% of Texans do not want this insane law passed. 60% said no. Law enforcement said no. Please do not do this. But Greg Abbott and the lunatic, fringy white guys that are in charge of Texas decided that what the NRA wants, because the NRA relocated, right? They moved to Texas because Letitia James busted them in New York, so they set up shop in Texas. So even though 59% of Texans don't want this law, even though law enforcement in Texas don't want this law, and Texas, the Houston Police Officers Union, the unions don't want this law. The Texas Municipal Police Association, which is also, a union for police officers, the executive director of the Municipal Police Association told the newspapers today, the Washington Post, that in states that enacted similar laws to the one that Greg Abbott is just about to sign, crime rates went up exponentially. And the police began to report all these challenges about policing after those laws went into effect. We now have 21 states that don't require background checks, 21 states that don't require any license at all. But in the name of protecting your constitutional perceived right of half an amendment taken out of context without the preamble to it, which makes it a provisory amendment, meaning a well-regulated militia being necessary to the preservation of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, right? So we've had, courts weigh in on this, all across, our history. Anyway, so here you have Texas, where they just passed a restrictive abortion law that says that a woman can only have an abortion 6 weeks into her pregnancy. Now, not to be gross or anything like that. Now, if you're a lily-livered coward of a man and you've never heard about menstruation or cycles or any of those things, you don't know that Flo comes to town, okay? You just don't know that your friend comes to visit every, 30 days or so. I'm not saying this to gross you. I'm saying this to enlighten you. If you miss your period, it takes about 2 weeks before you say, I'm really late. How late are you? About 2 weeks. All right, go get a test. By that point in Texas, okay, you're ineligible to do anything about whether or not you want to be or were raped or were the victim of a molestation by a family member. Incest is what it's called. Yeah, it's too late. You can't do a damn thing. You're having in the name of, privacy rights and all this, right? And you can't vote there either.
Call in, connect. This speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
You know, there's a numbness I imagine some of us are feeling about this, because there's a sameness to this.
Yep.
You know, anywhere USA. It just feels like this happens over and over and over again. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. It wasn't that long ago I was standing out here talking about the tragic loss of children, one in a mother's arms, the Gilroy Festival.
Garlic Festival.
Just here in this community, down in Southern California, and San Bernardino. Remember a few years prior, Santa Barbara. You know, pick a state. And here we are in the United States of America. We're experiencing something just is not experienced anywhere else in the world. There's a sameness to this. And that numbness, I think, is something we're all feeling. All of us gathered here today, looking at this scene, listening to governors, mayors, chiefs, speaking similar tone and terms, expression of condolences, all the right emotions and perhaps the right words, but it begs the damn question, what the hell's going on in the United States of America? What the hell's wrong with us? And when are we going to come to grips with this? When are we going to put down our arms, literally and figuratively, our politics, stale rhetoric, finger pointing, all a hand-wringing consternation that produces nothing except more fury and frustration, more scenes like this repeated over and over and over again. I say that not as a governor, I just say that as a father of four. I say that as a member of this community, cares deeply about it.
How freaking sick and sad are we as a population? I mean, the idea that, oh, it's video games. Remember, you tried everything. First, it was music. Okay, first it was music. Then before it was music, it was like Red Fox or something. Perverting, right? And then it was music, and music was making our children violence. We had to put advisories on that. And then it was movies, and then it was video games, and it's always something other than the thing, and the thing is the firepower. The thing is the gun. We are awash in weapons. You cannot legislate people out of mental illness. You cannot legislate people out of being bad drunks. You got a lot of rapey people in this country. You do. You got a lot of it. And you can't legislate them out of, you can only hold them accountable post, but you can legislate access to guns. It is the only thing that can be legislated. And let me tell you what the Senate is doing quietly. They know that they can't go up against the National Rifle Association. They know they can't, or they think they can't. I think they're wrong. They think they can't, okay? They don't get that. Here we are in a country where 90% of us want background checks before you can own a rifle that is a semi-automatic rifle that has a large capacity. Okay, most Americans, it's not even most, it's a huge amount of Americans agree that background checks should happen. And you've got legislatures that are going against their own population. In Texas, this is just, one state that I have numbers for because they just, they're ready to sign into law an insane law that will let any lunatic have a gun, and except for a felon, right? But if there's no background check, how do you know? You now have to sell to whoever wants to buy. Oh, well, we'll double the fines for felons if they get caught. What? What kind of a system is this? So 60% of Texans are against this. 60%. The police associations, municipal police, state police, police unions, Houston police officer, every union, every association, which is a lobby shop for police officers, are against this. They're actually against this in Texas. And at the same time, when Texas is, their legislature is calling this the constitutional carry law because they love the Constitution, right? They're also passing the most restrictive laws on voting. They're also passing the most restrictive laws on women's choice, which is settled law in these United States since 1973. So they're pro-life, except when you're talking about people needlessly being killed by guns, something even the police don't want to have happen on their streets. The hypocrisy is just, wow. It's stunning, right? It's really stunning. But they're doing it because the money is rolling in from organizations like the National Rifle Association, and they all want money, and they're literally legislating against the will of the people. There is a big disconnect in our so-called democracy. Big, huge disconnect. The other act of violence that they don't want to do anything about is the January 6th insurrection, which was caused by a lying sack of crap of a president, okay? And the amount of violence that ensued there, oh my God. And so today we were expecting, that they would vote to, the House has already passed a piece of legislation that would establish a commission, a nonpartisan, I don't even want to say bipartisan, it's a nonpartisan, non-political commission to figure out why America got so violent, to figure out what caused the biggest attack on the Capitol in the history of the United States. I mean, the English, burned down the Capitol, in 1812? The U.S. Capitol's never been attacked by the U.S. citizens, okay? It just never. And so when you see an attack on the Capitol and you see the violence that was deployed against police officers yet again, they love, we love the police. You're so full of crap. You make me sick, okay? People who just profess this undying love for police officers, when police officers are clearly saying, please investigate why 140 of us were beaten and dragged and had our fingers severed and were crushed and were bear sprayed and we had racial epithets hurled at us and we were called traitors to this nation for simply trying to secure the U.S. Capitol against a bunch of rickety old men who came with Molotov cocktails and homemade bombs and improvised explosive devices and guns in their trucks and freaking scaffolding with a noose on it and screaming that they were going to hang the Republican vice president. The police are like saying, please investigate this, please. Officer Sicknick, who died after the, episode on the Capitol, his mother is up on Capitol Hill with his former, she's still his girlfriend. He's just deceased. They're up there going from from Republican senator to Republican senator's office today. Gladys Sicknick, Officer Sicknick's mom, and his girlfriend. They're up on Capitol Hill, Sandra Garza, trying to plead with Republican lawmakers to not filibuster a commission to see what happened that day. They're going to filibuster because they love you.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Time to deal with the endemic before this pandemic of gun violence, the pre-existing condition that somehow sort of pushed aside last year, but now has raised its ugly head again this year. And wake up to this reality and take a little damn responsibility, all of us, to do a little bit more and a little bit better this time and move beyond the platitudes and the usual rhetoric that tends to mark not just these moments, but the aftermath of these moments as all of you go away and this fades out of view and then we rinse and repeat someplace else in this country.
Thoughts and prayers, everybody. Thoughts and prayers. Now, look, we have a representation problem in this country, and that's kind of, we were touching on it yesterday just a little bit. I wanted to put that out there. The 30% of the population, the 30% of the population that we were talking about yesterday are white men. White men are 30% of our population. White men, 30%. However, 62% of our representation in state legislatures, Congress, Senate, white men. There is a massive, massive advantage to incumbency. There's a massive advantage when you are in a state legislature when it comes time to redistrict or redraw maps that allows you to cling to power. And 30% of the population, and it's not the whole 30%, it's some portion of that 30%. Some little tiny portion of that 30, like 25% of that 30% is totally represented. And everyone else can go to hell. And that's why you see things that we're all in favor of, like background checks. There is no debate on it. I mean, you got, 10% of odd ducks out there. Again, it's some portion of 30% that are odd ducks. But 90% of America would like to see background checks pass the Senate once and for all and get it on the books as a federal requirement, a process that people have to go through before they can buy a lethal object, something that is designed for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to kill humans. And we all agree we can't get it done. And it's because everything in this country is the representation in this country does not represent what this country is. It doesn't represent women. It doesn't represent women of color. It doesn't represent anybody. 62% of all the representation in this country is done by white men. Anybody would look at those numbers and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. That is a complete disconnect in a democracy. What is going on? And the clear answer is cheating, voter suppression, racist voter suppression in places of color, dilution of Democratic votes by diluting districts and taking what might be a majority of Democratic voters and diluting them, just dividing them in such a way that they are melded into Republican districts so that they no longer have a majority say, that their sheer numbers are literally divided in such a way that if you had, 10 people in the majority, well, now you only have 2 because we folded we just folded, 2 people into this district and 2 people into that district and 2 people into that district and 2 people into that district. So the 10 is now 2. Then we put on the front end voter suppression rules. We say we're not going to mail you a ballot anymore, even though you're so used to voting by mail because that's the way you voted for years and years. Well, now we're not going to send you the ballot. Oh, you're used to dropping them off at a drop box. There won't be any drop boxes for you. Oh, there's no public transportation. Well, we're going to, that's good. So we'll put the polls further and further away from where the people live. Do you know what I mean? And it's such a rigged system that way. And yet, when you talk about a rigged system, you have some percentage of those 30%, right? Some percentage of them believe that our free and fair election, even with all of the hurdles, okay, that are put in front of people to vote, you have to register early. You don't have same day registration in this country. If you're voting by mail, you got a deadline to get it in and to get it postmarked. And then, it's got to get there by election day. And even though it's postmarked by election day, it's just, whatever. Oh, if you go to the wrong polling place instead of, allowing you to cast a ballot now on a provisional ballot, which will be counted later once that they, can actually verify that you are eligible to vote. No, now if you vote in the wrong polling place, they just throw it away. I mean, all of that. Why are they doing that? Because they can't win anymore. They can't win. It's done. It's done. This idea that they don't represent the American people is known, and it's being rejected in droves. Now, Donald Trump is constantly bringing up 75 million people. Yes, but 81 voted a different way. You understand? 75 voted this way. 81 is more than 75. And The Electoral College is really how we pick a president, and that was a rout. That wasn't even close. Not even close. So the white men in power are using their incumbency, meaning their position of power, to keep their power, and they're violating the people that they represent, their wishes, over and over and over and over. But the loudest people get the most attention. The most violent people get the most attention. The media just can't help it. I mean, they changed what they cover and how they cover it a long time ago with "if it bleeds, it leads." And that's kind of why all you see is hair-raising stuff and QAnon and this and that and lying and cheating. Meanwhile, we're dying out here. I mean, literally, this shooter in San Jose. This was one of those where, if you knew what happened, you would be so grossed. Because what this guy did, he went to the place where he worked, and he lined people up. And he said, okay, you can live, and then killed the next one. And then maybe he killed the next one and said, no, and you can live to the one after that. This is what he did. This is what he did. And we're so numb to it because it happens all the time now. It happens everywhere now. We're not just talking about your basic property crimes here. We're not talking about thievery. We're not even talking about the rapey nature of American, men. No, and we're not talking about that. We are now talking about mass shootings. And there have been almost 300 of them, 232 of them this year alone. And a mass shooting is a shooting where 4 or more people are killed. And we don't want to do background checks. But we do. Oh. Well, the Republicans want you to believe that we don't. So that they can take more money. And they can run more ads. And they can bamboozle more people to vote for them based on nothing. Nothing. There's no policy that they have that has helped America. There really isn't. And they know it. And Americans know it. And that's why they keep losing. What did I say? Something like 2 of the last 8 presidents, Republican, have won the popular vote. People don't like them. People don't want them. People reject them. And this is one of the reasons why. The hypocrisy of them is endless. Okay, when they're not in power, they scream about the deficit. When they are in power, they spend all your money. But they spend all your money by giving it to the richer people that then give them money. I mean, it's such quid pro quo. Now everybody knows quid pro quo, right? This for that. Okay, so we'll give you campaign donations, then you vote our way, and then, which our way means enrich us. Vote to benefit us. Screw the people. Don't raise the minimum wage. Biden was doing a Blueprint for America today, and he was saying, wouldn't it be something if in America, McDonald's and, gas stations, and so that they all had to compete for workers, and by compete, raise wages in order to get workers? Wouldn't that be like the American way? And Republicans are like, don't say that. Don't say that.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I think at the heart of this recommendation by the Democrats is that they would like to continue to debate things that occurred in the past They'd like to continue to litigate the former president into the future. We think the American people going forward and in the fall of 22 ought to focus on what this administration is doing to the country.
For the country.
And what the clear choice is that we have made to oppose most of these initiatives. So I think this is a purely political exercise that adds nothing to the sum total of information.
So he's talking about the creation of a January 6th commission, you know, as if he did not love the Benghazi hearings, the 10 different Benghazi hearings when 4 unfortunate souls had lost their lives in Benghazi, Libya. I mean, Vote Vets put out this really good little mashup here, okay, to show you what it would be like if Republicans treated the attack on their own workplace, an attack on the United States Capitol, as seriously as they treated the attack on a outpost in Benghazi, Libya.
What I think we ought to do is complete the investigation and find out what exactly happened. And I think we have a sense of what happened. We know there was inadequate security, and we know the administration kind of made up a tale here in order to make it seem like it wasn't a terrorist attack. I think that's worthy of investigation, and the investigations ought to go forward.
From my standpoint, the reason this administration was misleading us for a couple of weeks is because they didn't want Americans to really examine and think about the lack of action, the dereliction of duty, the gross negligence. Well, we certainly know the security requests were made and that they were denied. I mean, that we know.
Either through incompetence or an intentional effort to mislead the American people, tried to spin a story that would help the president. I blame the president above all others.
Isn't that something? So there you hear Mitch McConnell, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, all saying, oh, you know, Benghazi was a dereliction of duty and there was not enough security there and they just don't want you to know. And the president made up a tale about what happened in Libya. While you juxtapose that on top of the actual FBI footage of the Capitol insurrection, which Republicans say doesn't need to be looked at, doesn't need to be investigated. We don't have to find out what happened. And the reason is simple. It's because the Republicans were part of the insurrection. Republicans egged on the insurrection. Republicans stayed silent when Donald Trump was telling this big lie. And this big lie is the gift that keeps on giving, because this big lie is the reason why we have voter suppression laws in Texas, voter suppression laws in Arizona, in Florida, in Georgia. This is why we have fraudits going on in Arizona, and now we're going to have one in Georgia. A fraudit, where you're going to take the ballots of the American people and hand them, and the machines upon which we vote, hand those over to private contractors with no experience in elections so that they can do whatever they want with those ballots and with those machines and drag it out and drag it out and drag it out to the point where states are now going to have to purchase all new voting equipment. This is really the fix being put in to the next election. I mean, this is just so obvious. It's so easy to spot. Now, this is why Trump was such an F-up, okay? He tried to cheat on the back end. I keep explaining this to you. He made phone calls to secretaries of state. He made phone calls trying to scare people, intimidate, Raffensperger and Raffensperger's lawyer, right? Lawyer named German. I remember that because Trump said, well, at least you have a good name. He liked the name German. Oh, it was very sick. Saying, just find me $11,800. And they were like, dude, you don't rig an election on the back end. You rig it on the front end, moron. And he was talking to Brian Kemp, who did rig it on the front end when he was running against Stacey Abrams, right? And they were laughing at him. And now that big lie has led to violence. It has led to at least 5 dead people. It has led to these fraudits, and it's going to lead to, and it has led to, voter suppression laws, making it even harder to vote while they make it even easier to get a gun. What do you think could go wrong with that plan? Does that sound like a 21st century plan for America and our children? Or does that sound like a power play by violence and force for an aging, old, white population of haters? And they're shrinking, that's why they have to do it. There's just not enough people to vote for that. There just isn't. We're not a bad people. We're being governed by a bad people. Chris in Alaska.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I wanted to push back a little bit on something you said earlier about law enforcement not wanting us to have guns. I've talked to plenty of them up here. And
without a background check.
No, you specifically said law enforcement doesn't want guns in the hands of the people.
No, I specifically said the Houston Police Officers Association and the Municipal Police Association in Texas is against this insane law that would give people access to guns without background checks.
Okay, well, let's talk about that then. So I have plenty of guns that I got without background checks, and up here you can legally carry a gun without any permit. You can open carry if you're 21 years old.
And what's your crime rate up there? Because seems to me you got a small population with an extraordinary crime rate.
In a very small area.
Right.
Like, there's one street in my town where I bet you 80 to 90% of the crime occurs. If you stay out of that area, you're pretty much safe. Outside of Anchorage has a lot of crime. But I'll tell you right now,
Alaska has a lot of crime. Alaska's got, last year Alaska had over 1,000 rapes. Do you know that?
Were they involved with guns?
Rape.
I know, but was a gun used or was it a knife? Because knife crimes are huge up here. Knives are a huge problem.
Okay. You're a very sick freak, okay, I got to tell you. But when I point out to you that when you have states that have no background check rules and any idiot can get a gun, the crime rates go through the roof, which is what the police association in Texas was telling the legislature there. That's what I quoted him as saying, because that is what he said, the executive director of the Municipal Police Association in Texas. That is what he testified to. And you're sitting here telling me that this tiny little state with a teeny little population, all the raping is going on with knives, not guns, and it's only happening in one square block. There's something wrong with you.
I kind of want details from him about how he feels about that block,
Oh, I know what you mean. Alaska's got a really crazy high crime rate. It does. It's got lots and lots and lots of property crime. But it also has a lot of gun crime. It has a lot of murder. A lot of murder. You're talking freaking Alaska. You would not think that. But they also had a meth problem, so I don't know. In Wasilla. And I don't think that's part of a square block in Anchorage that you're referring to. I just don't.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
It's a gruesome epidemic that continues with no signs of stopping or even slowing down. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been 232 mass shootings so far this year, including today's incident, which was the 62nd in May alone.
Oh, God.
Today's shooting leaves another community asking again, as we do every time, when will this insanity stop? Unfortunately, because of the gun fetishizing Republicans running so many state houses, clearly not anytime soon. Just look at Texas. On Monday, lawmakers there approved a bill allowing anyone 21 and older to carry a handgun without a license or training or a state background check. And Governor Greg Abbott says he will sign it. Texas would join 20 other states with so-called permitless carry laws and would be the largest guns everywhere state by far.
Oh, look, there's Alaska.
Texas already has some of the least restrictive gun laws in the country. You can already open carry a rifle, which an AR-15 happens to be. Abbott also bragged that he has signed a resolution naming an official state handgun and would sign more gun laws real soon. Because that's the priority for the Republican governor and legislators who have now made it harder for adults in Texas to cast a ballot than to carry a handgun.
Or get an abortion. Then carry a handgun. You got to carry a baby, but, oh, my God. So just to be clear for our friend in Alaska, okay, Alaska is one of the most, I think it is the most dangerous state for women in the 50 states. 59% of all women in Alaska have been the victim of violent crime, sexual crime, or both. And when I was quoting, I just pulled back the article that I was quoting from, because all I do is read the newspaper, is really what we do here. We read newspapers, we do fact checks, and then we play audio of people saying what they said so that you will know what is true. That's it. That's the only agenda we have. Anyway, it was the Houston Police Officers Union, Douglas Griffith, the president of the Houston Police Officers Union. He said, who's going to have a weapon? Who's not going to have a weapon? Who's trained proficient in that weapon? Who's not trained proficient? I think it's very important when you're talking about people having something that could take someone's life that they should be trained in that. Kevin Lawrence, the executive director of the Texas Municipal Police Association, who is the person I quoted, he told the papers, I said, it was the Washington Post, that in states that enacted similar laws, like Alaska, similar laws to the one that Abbott is poised to sign, quote, crime rates went up and police reported challenges after such laws went into effect. Quote, it's going to make the jobs of the officers on the street more difficult, Kevin Lawrence, the executive director of Texas Municipal Police Association, said. That's where the quotes come from. I don't make them up. I don't pull them out of my butt like Tucker Carlson does and then claim in courtrooms that no reasonable person would believe anything I say. What I do is cite my sources and then tell you, don't believe anything I say. Look it up. Look it up, and I tell you what I'm quoting, so you could see it for yourself. And then on top of it, I publish the homework every single day. Well, what the hell's that, Randy? Those are the articles that this paper that you see in front of me, it's just newspaper articles. That's what it is. I just print them out. I use a print-friendly program so I can print them out without the photos, okay? So that I don't deforest entire sections of Alaska. Okay? That's it. That's all it is. That's what's in front of me. And that's what I send to anybody who wants it sent to them. You don't want it sent to you? I'm not going to send it to you. But if you subscribe and you want it for free, I will take the time to send it to you every single freaking day. So you can see exactly what I'm relying on to tell you what I'm telling you. Your crime rate in Alaska is so bizarre because every lunatic, fringy, drunk, drugged up white guy has access to weapons. Well, is it a knife or is it a gun? There's something so wrong with you when you are defending the mere fact that you live in one of the most crime-riddled states. Now, no one knows that. They'll call me up about Chicago. Because the south side of Chicago, a certain section of it, has illegal guns being sold in a marketplace that's making some people a lot of money, and the police don't want to answer the calls there, and the citizenry don't want to make the call because they don't trust the police. We have this extraordinary situation, and you cannot legislate any of it away except for the guns. It is the only tangible thing that could be legislated away. You tried a war on drugs. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. You tried militarizing the police. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. You can't legislate away mental health issues. You can't legislate away. You could legislate, access to mental health professionals. You could legislate, free or paid for, or Medicare covers it and everybody has Medicare. You could do that, but that's not in your wheelhouse. No, you just want that freaking weapon not to be blamed for what it does, kill people. I'm sorry, that's bizarre. Justin in Nebraska.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. So I just want to say, I want to throw this out there. We need to wake people up, and I got an idea on how to wake people up. It's too easy to come home from a long day of work at the factory or at the office or whatever, and just change the channel and skip past the mass shooting. What I'm thinking is, I was kind of thinking of like an alert system. Like maybe people could vote for like an alert system, like on your phone. But I also think that people would probably just skip past that too. Oh, people have it. People have that on their phone. New York has it. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. But what I was thinking was, this is even more crazy. This will put. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm sure this would wake people up with fear and panic. I don't know how. I don't know if this is a good idea or not. But the tornado sirens, the air raid sirens. Every time there's a mass shooting, if for every person that is pronounced dead at the hospital due to a gunshot wound, we should have those air raid sirens go off for like 5 minutes. So I get your point. I get your point, and it's a fair attempt at making people, pay attention to stuff. But I will tell you this: people know what they want, and 90% of Americans want background checks. 90% of us are woken up. 90% of us, and that includes Republican voters, independent voters, Democratic voters, progressive voters, green voters, non-voters. It includes almost every single solitary person except for somebody who is in love with a piece of metal more than their neighbor. And those people are few and far between. I got to tell you, the idea that America doesn't agree on background checks, that's a false idea. That's not true. That's a tiny little sliver.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Senate Republicans are poised to block a bipartisan measure to create a commission to investigate the Capitol attack on January 6th. The mother of fallen police officer Brian Sicknick is trying to change that. Gladys Sicknick, as well as Brian Sicknick's longtime girlfriend Sandra Garza, have been seeking sit-downs with every single Senate GOP office to emphasize the importance of establishing a commission to investigate the deadly insurrection. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who had racist slurs hurled at him by rioters, and D.C. Police Officer Michael Fanone, who suffered a heart attack and concussion while responding to the attack, joining Sicknick and Garza in some of their Senate meetings. Fanone had unsuccessfully sought a face-to-face with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy when that chamber was deliberating the commission bill. Gladys Sicknick told press at the Capitol that it was too important for her to not speak up.
This is why I'm here today. Usually I'm stay in the background, and I couldn't stay quiet anymore.
So the police officers, Michael Fanone and Dunn and Sicknick, who died, his mom and his girlfriend, are all going door to door in the Senate office buildings to visit with all the GOP, Mike Crapo, and Ben Sass, and all the others that refuse to even ask the question, what the hell happened on January 6th here at the Capitol? What the hell? Why were these people beating police officers with flagpoles with the thin blue line flag on it? Why were they beating police officers with the American flag on it? Why were they bear spraying police officers? Why were they calling them traitors? Why were they hurling racial epithets at Officer Dunn? Why did they tase Michael Fanone? Why did they crush police officers? Why did they, and when the police officer was crushed in between the door of the Capitol guarding it and this massive, massive crowd that was literally saying heave ho, and crushing this man, and then putting his face shield down over his face so he couldn't breathe. Why don't you want to know what the hell was going on there and what the cause of it is, and why every single attorney who's representing over 400 of these insurgents are saying, but my client believed that the President of the United States had invited them there to do this. My client believed that Rudy Giuliani, when he said trial by combat, meant it. My client believed when Paul Gosar and the night before said, you know, it's time to go up and storm the Hill, that they meant it. They don't want to ask these questions because they're afraid of the answers. And you know what? The police officers' wives and girlfriends and mothers and daughters, they want answers.
Police officers were getting attacked. They were getting beaten. Fire extinguishers were thrown at them. They were being attacked by flagpoles. I mean, Mike and Officer Dunn here, or I should say Officer Fanone, they can basically tell you right now what they experienced, and it wasn't a tourist day. It wasn't tourists just passively walking by.
If January 6th didn't happen, Brian would still be here, plain and simple.
Do you think you can change minds today?
I hope so. I hope so. And Brian had a work ethic like second to none, and he was just there for our country and for these guys, and he just was doing his job, and he got caught up in it, and it's very sad. This is supposed to uphold the Constitution, and right now I don't think they're doing it.
Gladys, poor Gladys. Her son was a police officer who loved his job and ended up dead because a president and some House members and a couple of senators like Josh Hawley gave him a fist pump and told him, go for it, go do it. Go attack your own freaking country's capital. Violent coup, everybody. It's on. It's on. We got your back. I mean, this is so sick. And by the way, there is reporting that Mitch McConnell, who hates Donald Trump. Why? Why does Mitch McConnell hate Donald Trump? He hates him because he lost his majority leader position. He hates Donald Trump because of Donald Trump, he's the minority leader. He is in the minority in the Senate. So there's animosity. But he's covering up. He's covering up. Why? Because the big lie is working. The big lie is creating voter suppression laws. It's allowing for these fantastical lies to spread across the country. It's allowing for, this is going to be the sickest part of the voter suppression laws. I know it's like not real yet because we haven't voted under them, but you'll see. It's going to be that there will be poll watchers. Now imagine that the poll watchers are just random poll watchers, self-appointed, self-deputized, vigilante type poll watchers, which is what this Texas law allows for. It's what the Georgia law allows for. All this voter suppression crap that's going on, everybody's concentrating on, we can't vote by mail. No, you won't. You'll have to apply for a ballot, which you never had to do before, and there won't be drop boxes for you, readily available. They'll be moved from on the street to inside polling places so that you could only drop your ballot off during normal business hours instead of, when you get off of work or whatever. So everybody's concentrating on that little part of it. No. Poll watchers. Wait, now they're going to be armed poll watchers. And not just armed with freaking cell phones getting in your face. No. And Mitch McConnell likes this. This is good for him. So he's gone personally to Ben Sass. He's gone personally to, Crapo and, Mitt Romney. Just as a personal favor to me, to not vote for this commission, as a personal favor to me.
In the last 24 hours, that McConnell has doubled down, started reaching out to particular senators he was afraid might be wavering, and asked them to vote against the commission, quote, as a personal favor, John.
Jamie, it is not
unprecedented. It actually happens frequently that a leader asks members of the caucus, Democrats and Republicans, I need this one. You have to take one for the team. But this is not any vote. This is not a budget vote. This is not, does somebody get a committee assignment? This is about an attack on the United States government.
Right. Exactly right. And I'm told the senators were really caught by surprise at his using that kind of language and just how insistent he's been. One Republican source said to me, quote, "No one can understand why Mitch is going to this extreme of asking for a personal favor to kill the commission." The source went on to say, "How can you have an attack on the Capitol and the Republican leader is saying vote against it?" The source ended by saying it is despicable.
So the source is stupid or disingenuous, because the reason Mitch McConnell doesn't want a commission is because it would affect voter turnout, especially by Republicans who will be so grossed out to learn what really happened that caused a violent coup, a violent insurrection to occur at the Capitol. He already knows there's not enough Republicans who vote to make him majority leader again. But if the conversation is a conversation about the violence that the GOP brought to the Capitol, he has no chance of being anything but minority leader.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, here's Joe Manchin saying whether he's for or against a commission. Okay.
The Democrats have basically given everything they've asked for, any impediment that would have been there, and there's no reason not to now, unless you just don't want to hear the truth.
Even Joe. You've lost Joe Manchin, McConnell. You've lost Joe Manchin. There's no reason not to have a commission unless you don't want to hear the truth. The reason why Mitch McConnell doesn't want a commission is not because he's afraid it would implicate Donald Trump or Rudy Giuliani or any of those people he hates. No, he doesn't want the GOP that he's part of to be exposed as the people who egged on, encouraged, and lied hard enough and fast enough and often enough to infuriate and to create a violent insurgency against our own government. Mitch McConnell is part of the party that did that. And he wants to be the majority leader. He's not on the ballot. Mitch McConnell just stood for re-election, and you know the whole Senate doesn't run at the same time. A third runs, and then a third runs, and then a third runs, right? So Mitch McConnell is good for 6 years. Okay, he'll die a senator. He's not worried about losing his election. He wants his majority back. He wants to be majority leader, and he knows that he can't if people are exposed to the truth. I will tell you, like these lunatic fringy people that are on these websites, not just Reddit and not just WhatsApp and not just, message boards like 8chan and 4chan and, 8kun. No, and the Facebook freaks and the memes and all that. So much of that is foreign, okay? So much of that literally is from foreign, operatives. It's from trolls from Poland, trolls from Russia. There are numbers that actually, will match up these memes that you see and these conversations that get started by, autocrats across the Atlantic, autocrats in, Russia, in Hungary, in Poland, Belarus. Okay, these dictators are literally sowing discord in America on purpose so that they can convince enough Americans that democracy doesn't work, right? And Donald Trump is down with that. And that is a good chunk of the Republican Party now. Now, Mitch McConnell, he isn't part of that thought process, But he likes the benefit that he gets from that thought. He likes the benefit from the racism. He likes the benefit from the violence. He likes the benefit from the hate and from the confusion, the disinformation and misinformation. He thinks he benefits from that. And so he's willing to keep a lid on the truth. But remember, he stood on the Senate floor and blamed Donald Trump for the insurrection and for losing the election. And right. So that's why he doesn't want a commission. That's why he's saying to Republican legislators, to Republican senators, do this as a personal favor to me. Vote against the commission. Vote against the commission. People can't hear the truth. They can't hear the truth. But Mitch, the truth is, that Donald Trump was a freak of nature. Donald Trump, no. But we benefited from that. So now we have these voter suppression laws, and we'll benefit from those. You got to keep a lid on it, man. You don't want people talking about the insurrection and answering real questions about who did it and why, and that the election was free and fair and all those things. Because I could say it on the Senate floor, but hardly anybody watches the C-SPAN. And finally, Joe Manchin is like, there's only one reason why they wouldn't want a commission, and that's because they don't want to hear the truth. So you have people who have a stake in the violence, who want to perpetuate rumors and innuendo and outright lies and voter suppression laws that are a result of the lie. They feel that they will benefit from it. And Mitch McConnell is one of those. And so is Josh Hawley. He's one of those. Now, Mitt Romney is not one of those. We don't know where Susan Collins falls yet. She's still deciding what to do. But there are some Republican senators who value America more than they fear losing an election. Mitch McConnell is not one of those people. And by election, I mean other people's elections, because he wants the majority back. He's not on the ballot in Kentucky in 2022. So you have ulterior motives about whether or not you will defend democracy? Yes, that's what I'm telling you. They have ulterior motives about whether or not it is convenient or self-enriching to defend democracy. And that is unacceptable. That's unacceptable. You could say it's disgusting and you could say it's a lot of things, but it's unacceptable. Don in Iowa.
Yeah, hi, Randy. Thanks, and I really do like your show a lot. Now, I agree with you that they were sent down there as a mob. What I want to know is why they couldn't defend the Capitol. I want to know why they weren't. They had guns. Why there weren't a bunch of legs shot off or whatever. And what I'm trying to say is, just like they have bad policemen and it gets covered up, I want to know if they were told to stand down, number one, then someone should say who told them to.
Chris Miller.
And number two,
Chris Miller told them to. Do you know who that is?
Miller. No, who's Miller?
Okay, he was the acting Secretary of Defense. Remember, the Secretary of Defense, Esper, was removed from his post 11 days before this happened. And they installed this sycophant, this Trump sycophant, Chris Miller, who wrote the memo telling the National Guard that they could not defend the Capitol that day. They were not to have any weapons. They were not to...
Did the Capitol Police have weapons?
The Capitol Police were so outnumbered that they thought, I mean, Mike Fanone, who was personally attacked, he said that he thought about shooting his weapon. He thought about it, but he understood that if he did, they would just take his weapon and he would be outnumbered. They would use his own gun against him.
Then why didn't he? That's
he
his
told
job.
you why he didn't. He said that there was no winning strategy in that.
Well, I don't agree. And I think a lot of them stood down because they were pro-Trump, and they let them get overrun. They let their guys get killed and overrun.
They did let their guys get overrun. That's because they needed the National Guard to show up. And Chris Miller ordered the National Guard not to be armed. And also they were told, don't touch a Trump protester. Do not touch a Trump protester. Did you hang up on me? You hung
No,
up.
I accidentally did that,
Oh,
grabbing
you did
another
it?
call. That's on me. That's on me, bud.
Oh, okay. Sorry. But anyway, yes, there was a stand-down order. We've talked about the smoking gun memo. It was Chris Miller, the acting Secretary of Defense. It was his memo that literally defanged and disarmed the National Guard. They were told that they would not have any weapons at their disposal, not even a helmet. They didn't even give them helmets. And so the National Guard was told to do traffic duty that day. And the Capitol Police were total. If you look at the videos, this is the best way for you to explain it to yourself. You don't need me to explain it anymore, I don't think. But what you want to do is go to the FBI's website, okay? And look at the insurrection videos. Look at that and listen to Mike Fanone and listen to Dunn tell you what happened there. I mean, Dunn is a 6'7" dude. He's a big guy. They understood that without backup, if there were shots, that they would lose control of their own weapon. And anyway, go look at the FBI videos, and you will see how the police that were available that day, where they were positioned by these barricades and by doors, and how they were trying to defend the Capitol. And you will quickly realize that the crowd had bear spray, that the crowd was, using objects like their own shields, had stolen the police's own riot shields from them, and were using the riot shields against them. So that the natural conclusion the police made was, if I take out my weapon, that will happen to my gun. We have no backup. We are completely outnumbered here. And that was by design. It was by design. Now, if the National Guard would have been deployed in a different fashion, meaning they would have created a larger perimeter for the protesters to avoid them getting that close to the Capitol, that would have been helpful. Just a little thing like that. A little tactical decision like that would have been helpful. This was totally set up to look this way, to go this way, to be this way. And police are not stupid. Anyway, go look at those videos.